All right, welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here. You can catch us on RT.ie, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts, and you can subscribe to whichever ones you want to get the latest episodes as they land. Lots to talk about today, including Stephen Kenny's Ireland, the under-21s, and Athlone Town winning their first FAI Women's Cup in very dramatic fashion. And I'm joined today by former Ireland international Keith Treacy and the 42.ie's David Sneyd. I hope you're all in good form, and I suppose where we're going to start off is probably on the grim note of the final Euro 2024 qualifier in Amsterdam. And look, 1-0 defeat to the Netherlands, Wout Weghorst's goal in the first half. And David, I mean, there wasn't anything riding on it, but there was this whole, with this being potentially Stephen Kenny's final competitive game in charge, weirdly enough, there was this kind of testimonial feel to it. At least that's the way Shea Given described it.
Yeah, no, like once the Dutch kind of took the lead, you kind of just seeing kind of all the confidence pretty much drain out and a lot of the purpose drain out of the Ireland team. Like they actually started the game relatively well, had that chance with Alan Brown, had a bit of purpose about them. But that game kind of just sums up the campaign in terms of once something went against them and they kind of struggled maybe to get back on terms and actually, I don't know, get back, just really make a game of it. And I suppose, I don't know, you're kind of hoping beforehand, like even in the whole week building up to the game, speaking to players, and obviously for me, they were talking about obviously backing the manager and talking about wanting to have a result for him and stuff, but maybe just the nature of the confidence is just drained out of them over the last while because of how results have gone, that they just weren't able to do it. And it was just, it wasn't a very unsurprising kind of end to a campaign. Obviously, it could have been worse had Gavin Bazunu not kept the Dutch out with some really good saves and some good moments. But yeah, it was just kind of like the campaign as a whole. It was just a kind of a pretty dispiriting end, to be honest.
Yeah, and Keith, I mean, breaking it down, I mean, looking through it, like the gaps between midfield and defence, there were, I think Josh Cullen seemed fairly isolated. The Dutch seemed to be always finding pockets of space there. And I think the goal itself almost exemplifies it as well, like the amount of space that Wout Weghorst found, despite not being the quickest over the ground.
Yeah, when I listened to Stephen Kenny's pre-match interview, and he was saying that we're going to look to have an air to control in the game and we're going to try and press the Dutch high, and it was just, for me, it was the wrong way to go about it. I know Stephen wants to be on the front foot, he wants to press people all over the place, but I've had a real look at the goal we conceded, and Liam Scales is on the left wing, marking Xavi Simons, and Simons is thinking, I want to drag you out here. So at some point Scales must think, I'm a centre half, he's not going to score from the left wing. It's 10 minutes into the game in Amsterdam, Raf. It's totally nonsensical thing. Every professional fibre in my body when I was brought up would have told me to go back where I came from, that he can't hurt me from there. So look, Stephen wants to press people all over the pitch. That's all well and good. It's a great soundbite, but it's very, very naive. It's either naive or silly. It's one or the other. And we've been doing this now for the last couple of years, trying to go toe-to-toe with people, and the result would say we only lost 1-0. I think we can all agree we're absolutely battered. It could have been an awful lot worse. The Dutch's finishing at times was really, really bad. We played our way into trouble trying to play out from the back. And look, I'm not saying that I wanted us to go there, tip off, kick the ball out of play and just keep it making it horrible like that. We play for at least the first 20 minutes, Raf. You have to start chipping the ball into the green grass in behind. You get the Dutch to back off you. You slow the tempo down. You disconnect the ground. That party field that the Dutch had, we just fed into it. Everything that they would have wanted us to do, we did. We kept the ball around the back. We popped the ball into midfield. And the Dutch let us have it at times and just said, right, we'll close the door now and nick it and go on horses. And look, it's basically the whole campaign summed up in one game. We're not good enough to compete with the big boys at this level. So why we keep trying to have a game of football against them is absolutely beyond me. But yeah, look, Evan Ferguson as well. Like, people are saying to me, we have Evan in the squad now. We have a little bit of magic, but we need to get the ball up to him. If he hasn't got the ball, if he's not in and around the ball, then he's not going to be able to affect the game. So why we're starting our attacks, and that's what people say when we're playing out from the back, we're starting our attacks. We're starting our attacks 70 yards away from him. And we're not good enough to go bop, 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 bop. We just haven't got it, Raf. I've seen it now for years and years. We haven't got it. So let's just cut our cloth accordingly. Play to what we have. Play our strengths. And I'm watching Scotland last night and I'm thinking, look, Scotland have better players than us. That's a given. They're a more talented bunch. But the individual sum of what they do, you never come away thinking John McGinn's won that game for them. Scott McTominay has won that game for them. It's a team approach. It's the way they rattle and harass and get about each other. And look, the Norway game aside, they weren't great last night, but how they got to that position against the Spanish was just running around and 100% work rate. And against the French, against the Dutch in the first half in Dublin, we had that work rate. Against the Greeks, it did drop down, and it's not a thing that you can throw at Irish teams generally. But if we worked as hard against the French, like we did if we'd have worked that hard against the Greeks, I think we'd have got something out of it. But the fact that our biggest weapon over the years for me has in our DNA has been the underdog mentality, and we're going to rough you up, and we're going to get about you, and we're going to play a little bit of football as well. We've took our main weapon away from us, our heart. We don't do it anymore because it's all tactics. I think we need to go out there, be prepared to suffer, run through brick walls, play for set pieces, put the ball into their box, make people defend, make them uncomfortable, and we'll get things out again. We'll beat the teams we're supposed to beat, and we might nick an odd scalper every now and then. But at the minute, we're getting beaten by teams we should be beating, and we're getting hammered by the teams that are better than us. And it's just nowhere near good enough for me, Raf. But everybody already knows all this.
Yeah, and we're at a tipping point, obviously, with Stephen Kenny and his future. And he was speaking to Tony O'Donoghue after the match in Amsterdam. So let's listen to what he has to say about the deficit in Irish football and also his future as well.
The fact that your players continue to support you publicly, and it would seem in the dressing room as well, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I don't think it's just for me. I think it's for the whole environment and the level of professionalism with all the staff. It's not just me. I think it's with all the staff, to be fair. I don't think it's just a personal one on me. I think it's all of the staff and the level of professionalism. I think obviously we've rebuilt a team complete over the last couple of years. All these players have come through because it was needed. There were the alternatives are players that have moved down the divisions. There's no one that we're overlooking. Okay, there's a massive deficit in Irish football. All of these players have been fast-tracked through.
But do you think, Stephen, that because of the results and the way this last campaign has gone, that will be the end of your tenure as such as Republic of Ireland manager?
I really don't know. I don't control that. It's quite possible. I don't know. But it's all I can say is I see the effort tonight and the high level of skill and the bravery. It wasn't enough. Holland were better than us. And what's the alternative? Defend deep and just try and see it out, and they'll break you down anyway if you go that. We went to we went to try and create chances at home by pressing higher. Tonight they caused us more when they played through our press. They caused us problems, but overall the players I thought showed they were very, very courageous in and out of possession and were willing to fight till the end. Just that little bit of cutting edge that we needed, level of crossing at key times let us down a bit, I felt.
Do you think that these players, for another manager in the future, as they develop more as players, as people, as professionals, will deliver for Ireland?
Yeah, I think a lot of these players, their careers on an upward trajectory, all of them, bar one or two, their careers, the best years are ahead of them now, careers on upward trajectory. We've blooded them early. That's really enhanced their own careers. A lot of them have the international performances have helped them get their move in their club careers in a major way, and that's 8 or 9 players. I'm not talking about 1 or 2, and I think it's helped them. Now we need to get better at what we do, and a lot of good things. But obviously, it was the toughest of groups, and I know there'll be a lot of criticism about the Greek games, but I think the players gave everything tonight. But just Holland were just a bit better than us.
Okay, we've got to leave it there. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right, so that is Stephen Kenny there. And just on the, the idea of there being a massive deficit in Irish football, David, and I guess where Kenny fits in that as well, and for want of a better word, do you see him maybe sort of almost a victim of circumstances in a way that this is a sort of a very, very long transition and gaps between sort of generations?
Yeah, I know what you say in terms of see, it's one of them where like I come like Anthony, if you're going to be building something or trying to improve something and put in foundations, it's very hard to do it when you're the senior international manager and trying to do it from top down. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know he's mentioned there about blood and a lot of players, and it's more than 20 players that have obviously been given their debut. Which, yeah, it's needed to be done. Like if you go back to the last Euros, wasn't it like the second or third oldest average age, and now it's one of the youngest, like the second youngest of the qualifiers. Which maybe needed to be done, but it feeds in. Of course, it feeds into that sense of, and I know obviously Keith has spoken about this, and he'll know as well. Obviously, being involved with St. Pat's, just of the need of it needs to be bottom up, you know, in terms of building it, and it needs to be something whereby you have that long-term plan in place. Do you know what I mean? And like the FAI released it in July, where they're talking about the infrastructure plan, and they were talking about obviously wanting to have upwards of nearly 900 million euro in terms of from the government, and putting that towards obviously not even just League of Ireland and grassroots, but also even just making their own infrastructure out in Abbottstown with the pitches there modern. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what was needed. That was needed to be fit for purpose essentially, which is incredible when you think about it. So, and in terms of the players, like you can look at it, like Stephen Kenny referenced it there, and I think Keith mentioned it as well about just say wide players, and you talk about say the likes of saying like Bene, obviously that, but the reason why I reference him is he's at that age profile, 26, 27, where if you look around the squad, there's very few who are at that age level, where lads who you'd be thinking, right, have got already a little bit of experience behind them coming into their peak years, possibly not, still haven't actually maybe properly hit it, but ready to emerge. And there's very few who are actually at that stage. And that's where, even though Stephen Kenny has mentioned it before, about almost like a lost generation of players, where you look at, say, the likes of even like a Shane Duffy or a John Egan who are in there, but then below them, the age profile, it drops significantly down to, say, the lads who are 18, 19, 20, 21. And I suppose at international level, when you've been brought in only over the last couple of years, you're going to be playing catch up big time. And one of the points that I kind of would make, and even Stephen Kenny speaking today, and he obviously at the pre-match press conference for New Zealand, and he's talking about maybe if it is his last game, which we all now expect it to be. But the big thing would be is it's been great and it's been needed that there have been these players coming through, but they're going to need their confidence picked up a little bit, because they've been in this rut now for a little while, where results, where the new manager comes in. Yeah, it's been great that these players have been blooded, and you would hope that they will be on that upward trajectory, but there's still an awful lot of work for them to do at club level and international level. Do you know what I mean? It's not a given. It really isn't a given that the experiences of the last year or so will properly make them into international players. We cannot tell that yet. Like, they have to go and do it now, even in their club career, and in the short term, in the next campaign for next year, when it's obviously September by the time the Nations League rolls around. It's going to be a case of the point that Keith made as well about, well, like, how do you actually pick them up a little bit here and make sure that they have got results? So you have this deficit of, we're talking about their players coming through, but in the short term, the players who are there and have been blooded, they're the ones that are going to be there. But there's going to be work to do now as well to kind of pick them up off the floor a little bit, because there's no doubting that the last year or so, just that confidence would have taken a massive hit. And it feeds into what happened in that game against the Dutch, where as soon as they did take the lead, the confidence just drained out of them. They just weren't able to pick themselves up at all.
Yeah, and Keith, just on the aspect of what Kenny said about the players being, and the younger ones, this is, which is sort of the bulk and core of the squad, being on an upward trajectory. Evan Ferguson aside, I think there's a sense with him that's definitely the case. But in general, where do you feel the ceiling is at for some of those players? Because certainly age-wise, there is scope for an upward trajectory, but at the same time, a lot of them have found kind of their career stalling, with a few exceptions, and a lot of them playing in the championship, or just maybe not where maybe some expectation would have expected them to be.
Yeah, I think if there's a couple of individuals that are looking very, very promising. Obviously, you take Evan Ferguson aside, he looks like he's going to be an absolute superstar. You look at Andrew Moran, he looks to have everything, but Raf, it's more of a sign of where this Irish senior team is, that Andrew Moran plays a handful of games in the championship for Blackburn, looks really good. I'm not trying to diminish how well he's playing very, very well, but all of a sudden we're saying he's the next hope, he's the next one that's going to do it for us. And we've been here before. We tried Parrott, Aaron Connolly. Amma Bemidele's career seems to have stalled as well. He was one that came into the group, and we thought, well, defensively he looks really good. We were talking about putting him 1v1 with Mbappe. He can't get a game at Nottingham Forest. So although the potential, we've an awful lot of potential in the squad, but potential doesn't pay the bills. And I played for Ireland at every age group coming up. The amount of every year it gets harder and harder, and you see your players or your friends starting to diminish, and all of a sudden you're the only one that was playing 15s football, and that's playing 17s football, then 17s football, 19, it gets filtered out again. And then even from when I played under 21s football, I think Seamus Coleman is the only one that I played with that's in that team right now, and I'm only 35 years of age, so it's not, you don't become a good 21s player, a little bit of a flash in the pan and get thrown into the senior team. And this senior team, Stephen Kenny's talking about having to blood a lot of youngsters. That's not, yeah, okay, I totally take that on board. But if you're going to blood all these youngsters into international football, you have to give them an easy way of playing. And an easy way of playing is a 4-4-2, or listen, lads, when we lose the ball, we're going to drop into a 4-4-2 or a 4-5-1, something simple. There's too many. I look at Benny at Luton. When Benny gets the ball at Luton, he doesn't try and come in and play off people and do 1-2s. He gets the ball, he runs up the pitch, he gets his team up the pitch, and he plays from there. And he's a brilliant outlet. He looks really good against Liverpool. He's starting to become a Premier League player. But we don't do that. We get the ball at the back and we're telling our Benny to come inside. When it's there, I want you to make these little neat, intricate runs. That's not his style. Keep it really, really simple. We've too many novices at this level to be playing this expensive time of football. And one of the basics of football, I've been in lower ranked Premier League teams like where Blackburn were quite competitive at the time, but Burnley, when I played for Burnley, when you play against a bigger team, the basics of the game is you make the pitch small. When the opposite team have the ball, make it small. Get yourself nice and compact, make them play around you, don't let them play through you. We're going chasing the Dutch all over the pitch. And this is nonsensical, crazy stuff. And look, if we nick the ball and we score a goal, you say, this is excellent football, brilliant stuff. But we did that in Dublin, and I think it was so naive to think that this group of lads could go to Amsterdam and play the same way and possibly get the same. We did get the same result, we lost. But it's just, I think we need to be similar of the same Hinchy. It's too hard for these young lads to come into a struggling Irish team that's low on confidence, going to Holland, trying to play out from the back. And look, we can. Some sound bites sound great. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. That all sounds great. The reality is very, very different. It's very different. And look, I've probably gone off on a little tangent. You asked me what the potential is like. We have an awful lot of potential, Raf. But these lads that are 20, 21, 22, there's so much that's going to come into their lives. When they come 26, 27 and they're playing at a level and they've done it for 2 years, 3 years, then I would get on side and go, listen, we have a player here. We have a couple of flash in the pans at the minute that look like they have potential, and we're all desperate to get behind them. They look really good. The pick of the bunch is obviously Evan, but he's up the top of the pitch, and how do we get the ball to him? So I don't know, if there is potential there, but I think we need to play, and we need to make it easy for these lads to go and have decent international careers. And once they have 15, 20, 25, 30 caps under their belt, and I'm talking as a team, then maybe we can say, well, let's start complicating this a little bit, because at the minute, these are novices at this level, and we're getting them to do things that it's just off the wall and way too hard.
Yeah, and of course, the international window doesn't end for Ireland. There is the New Zealand game tomorrow, so kick off at 7:45 p.m. Friendly, of course, and coverage on RT2 and the RT Player from 7:30, and that's going to immediately follow the under-21s game. Evan Ferguson appears to be fit for it, from what Stephen Kenny said in the press conference this morning. Nathan Collins, though, ankle ligaments being an issue, he's going to be out. But let's listen to Matt Doherty, who was also speaking after the Dutch game, because it was kind of interesting, and also then straight off the back of it, Stephen Kenny, who was talking about what the situation is if it does turn out that the New Zealand friendly is his last game.
What was it like in the dressing room afterwards? Because if all the talk is right, that could be Stephen Kenny's last competitive fixture in charge of Ireland.
Look, I don't know anything about that. I hope that's obviously not the case. Like I've said many times before, this group needs to be coached, well, and that's exactly the things that we've been getting for a long time now. So. Look, I hope he stays on after the game. Obviously, it was a lot of disappointment. Just talking about little things in the game, the differences between getting results and not getting results. But going back to Stephen, look, listen, I've always backed him. He's always backed me. So for me, I'd love to see him and all the coaching staff stay. If people really saw what it was like on the training pitch, what it's like in the changing room, how he cares about his players, and just generally how they set us up, the attention to detail that they have. I think it would be hard pressed to find somebody else who can deliver that.
Obviously the decision has been made next week, you know, like, or whatever, but if it is my last game, so be it. Like, I'll wish, if there's a new manager to follow me in that regard, I'll wish him well. And I think if that is the case, and they make that decision, I don't know what decision will be made, but regardless of what decision is made, and if there is a new manager to come in after me, I will absolutely wish him well and wish the team well moving forward, and I'll always support Ireland. So from that point of view, that's the way I view it.
All right, so Stephen Kenny there, and before that, Matt Doherty. And David, listening to that, the Doherty interview, I thought, and he was speaking to Tony O'Donoghue, of course, I found a lot of that quite kind of fascinating, especially the line about if you could only see what was happening in the dressing room. And then you're kind of squaring it with results as well. But there is a consistency from the players in terms of backing the work that Kenny, Keith Andrews and everyone else is doing. So it is kind of interesting on that point of view.
Yeah, like it's natural in the sense, and it's been a recurring theme even over the last couple of years, because like it's not a new thing here where Stephen Kenny's under pressure and people are discussing his job. Like, again, I got back, I remember writing an article for this in the 42 a couple of years ago. If you go back to the summer 2021, when obviously Ireland had a training camp abroad and then they played Doherty. And like that was around the first time as well when, say, people who were involved with the FAI, be it people who were on the board or people in higher up positions, could actually spend a bit more time around the squad and actually go and watch training and all the rest of it, because obviously with COVID up until that point, there was like everyone was in pods and all the rest of it. You couldn't really get a sense of it. But at that time, that's when even Stephen Kenny was coming under pressure, and there was stuff coming out. If you remember, Seamus Coleman was injured but linked up with the squad and wanted to be around the place. And there was even talk then that, apparently senior players weren't happy with some of the stuff that eventually was totally refuted. And like, I remember at the time speaking on and off the record to players, and they were effusive in, say, praise. You fast forward a couple of years and it's still the same. And it's probably natural in the sense that because Stephen Kenny has given so many of these players their first caps, they're going to have that loyalty. That's going to be a natural thing in football where, especially at international level, the manager who brings them in, there's going to be that loyalty. They have that working relationship, even with some of the players going back to even the 21s level. I'd like to say a Matt Doherty, I suppose, naturally will have it, because up until that point, remember previously, I think it was Martin O'Neill, remember he was talking about maybe he felt as if his face didn't fit in the squad, and obviously Stephen Kenny came in and has shown an awful lot of faith in him. So it's perfectly understandable that a lot of players will have that loyalty to say the manager. But then also you hear what, as Matt Doherty said there about say work that has been done on the training pitch, and it seems it kind of tallies from what other players will tell you, is that like a lot of it is very like, it's very not similar, I won't say similar, but same, but like just in terms of the processes that they will go through in the training pitch, it is very similar to what's happening at club level, just because the nature of what's happening with coaching and how it's done now with all the different licenses, and how a lot of ideas are quite kind of similar a little bit. So like there is that element to it as well, where like it's very pointed as well. And Matt Doherty was saying, this group needs to be coached, but then that feeds in as well to what the point Keith made as well about, well, they need to be coached, but they're all coming through at a very similar point in their careers. Like what's the best way of going about it, of actually making the transition to this senior level as simple as possible for them? Because I'll be honest, maybe it's my own ignorance to it and just my own basic not understanding as well, obviously, of that level of football. But I would have thought coming in that they wouldn't need to have something just basic and rudimentary, that they could actually deal with other stuff that was being asked of them, or maybe stuff that wasn't. I think the point that Keith made is actually it's kind of maybe more of an interesting one, that even players at that level finding their feet and getting a sense of it, if the information from them is actually a bit more simple, it just makes it a bit easier. It's only when you say it out loud it seems so obvious and it's so straightforward, but I kind of maybe had it in my own head, well, these are elite players coming forward in their careers that they could deal with certain situations and certain instructions, but clearly maybe it is just a case of probably crawling before you can walk or even run, you know.
Yeah, and Keith, just on what Doherty said, and obviously, as David said there, you know, Doherty has worked under some great managers at club level, whether it be at Spurs or Wolves in his couple of different spells, and yet, as much as he says, you know, the coaching on the training ground is, you know, top notch, there is still the issues of game management as well, and as you've kind of alluded to, the Dutch game being an example, but previously through the last couple of campaigns as well.
Yeah, well, he's talking about players are coming in and they need to be coached. That's not an international manager's job. If a player's coming in to play international football, he should be of a certain standard and he should be ready to go. Now, I get there's certain little tactical tweaks that a player will have to learn here and there, but some of these players are going a total 360. They're going from wherever they're doing at their club system to not playing, to being in and out, to being a mainstay of the Irish team, and we're going to play this most complicated way of football. And he says, you know, if you could see the work we're doing on the training pitch, the things we're doing behind closed doors. Well, you had a 10-day training camp in Turkey before the Greek game, and you looked like a bunch of strangers for 10 minutes. So, you know, you can rubbish an awful lot of the stuff that's being said here by the players. And a lot of players will have a loyalty to Stephen because they're playing for him, they've got caps under them. So I totally understand all of that. But you look at the group, take one quick look at that group, Raf. We're out of the group with Gibraltar. The Greeks have threw a couple of punches. They battered us twice. We won 2 games and they were both against Gibraltar. We scored 9 goals in the group. 7 of those came against Gibraltar. The other one was a penalty and a set piece. So this stuff of we can do this, we can't do it. We just can't do it. And look, that's not to say, again, I keep going around to, it's either we go long ball or we play football. There's a hybrid approach here. It's not all of one and none of the other. So when they're saying the training ground, the dressing room, all that means nothing. It's all about what happens on the pitch, and what's been happening on the pitch hasn't been good enough. And it's that simple. Players can come out and say, I like him, I have a time for him. I have a lot of time for Stephen. A lot of people have a lot of time for Stephen. I was quite close with Keith Andrews before he went into the Irish job. I have a lot of time for him. I know John O'Shea, a lot of time for him, but tactically it's been wrong, and I think we have to play it a different way. And the longer this keeps going on and on, the longer this is going to be said. And look, I think you're asking players that are novices at this level to play, and you're saying they need to be coached. You're coming in on a maybe a Sunday afternoon after you played on a Saturday. You're not going to really train on the Monday because the legs are still a bit sore and a bit stiff. So by the time Tuesday rolls around, you might get a little training session in. Wednesday will be a little tickle as well. Thursday, you're into, right, this is what we're going to actually do, lads. So you're talking about 24, 48 hours before the game that you're starting to touch tactically what you want the lads to do. Now, that's too big, Raf. That's not enough time to go through every little thing. When the ball's here, I need you there. When that's there, I need you there. We need problem solvers, and we need players with intelligent heads on them to know where they need to go. And look, whatever Stephen's coaching, if Stephen's telling Liam Scales to go and stand on the left wing after Javi Simmons 10 minutes into a game in Amsterdam, that's kamikaze stuff. And people would say, you know, that's the way we want to do it. That is kamikaze stuff. It really is stuff. It's naive and it's kamikaze. So we've done that. And he's saying, well, look, let's drop in. What did the Scottish do when you didn't have the ball last night against Norway? They dropped in. Aston Villa is a prime example of this under Unai Emery. When they lose the ball, they drop into a 4-4-2. And they just have 2 banks of 4. They keep 2 Ollie Watkins and Bailey up front, 2 speedsters. And you just think, we're going to win it. We're going to give it to them. And we're all going to come straight down your throat. And if you're a professional footballer, you know how to defend in a 4-4-2. If you don't, you shouldn't be a professional footballer. Everybody knows how to defend. There's very little grey areas. It's black and white where you need to be when the ball's in certain positions. Simplify it and build from there. We like David said, we started trying to run before we could even walk here, and we just keep getting found out. And I've already, the next couple of years to me, I wouldn't say they're a write-off, but Euro 2028 is the big one for us. We're going to be a host. We have to be a part of that tournament. And I'm talking to me mates, I'm talking to other pundits and analysts around me, and they're saying the only way we get to that tournament is if we get a buy into it. And I have to think I'm pretty similar to that thinking as well. You know, unless we get some sort of crazy backdoor route with which they've probably already alluded to.
Yeah, and the timeline over the next wee while, of course, there's an FAI board meeting next Tuesday, 28th of November, which Kenny's future and this campaign will be assessed, and presumably a decision will be made at some point after that. And then, of course, friendlies in March and no competitive games until September's Nations League campaign. And then I suppose on the wider thing, Keith, I mean, I saw a tweet by, well, they're not called tweets anymore, but anyway, it doesn't matter, by Dermot Looney, who's the author of Saints Rising, the early history of St. Patrick's Athletic FC. And he wrote, the only game in town for the Ireland men's senior team and the entire football industry here is huge investment in LOI facilities and academies. Debates about managers and playing styles are mere sideshows which suit those who thrive in the pool of shallow analysis. Okay, the last part of that I might push to the side slightly, but his wider point, I think, whoever comes in next, is there a sense that possibly until there's investment in facilities in terms of things that will help better players come through, that any manager who comes in after Stephen Kenny is kind of coaching and managing with one hand behind their back?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people, when Brexit came about, a lot of people thought, great, our younger talents now will have to stay in the country and we'll coach them and we'll see the best of them, and they won't be able to leave till they're 18, 19. On a human level, that's brilliant. But we've all spoke about the facilities within the League of Ireland for years. They're not good enough. For some Shamrock Rovers, Pats, maybe to a certain extent, have enough. The facilities are okay, but all of a sudden, our best talents, 15, 16, 17, it's now our responsibility to get them ready for first team football. Where when I was playing at 15, I went to Blackburn, and Blackburn got me ready to go and play first team football. So the facilities, the structure, the time on the pitch. I mean, when I went to Blackburn, I was living there. I was living in the digs on the pitch from. I think I woke up at 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night. The facilities were open. All I did was play football all day, every day. We have the lads on the pitch maybe 3 times a week. And you need so much technique work, shape work. There's all so much that goes into it. And we just don't have the time with the lads, let alone the facilities needed to get them ready for first team football. So Brexit is helping us, but it's also giving us a bigger responsibility with these younger players that we have to mould them. And we're not quite ready for it. And if I personalise it for like the likes of Sam Curtis, who's 17 years old at Pats, doing really, really well, getting hair on his chest, playing in cup finals, playing in the Aviva in front of 40,000. But he needs every day. He's getting it at Pats every day. But somebody, so Sam's a little bit different because he's in the first team at Pats. If somebody's 16, they're not getting the minutes on the pitch needed. They're still in school. They're juggling, junior certs, leaving certs. These are all things that when I was across the water were sort of taken out of my hands, and I just played football, and my life was sorted out by everybody else. So the lads are juggling an awful lot, and the clubs have an awful lot more responsibility. So that needs to change. But at the same time, Raf, it can be used as an excuse for the first team to a certain extent. But that group of lads that we have now in the present can win an odd game of football here and there. They can compete a lot better against Greece. They beat Gibraltar. Nobody's patting them on the back for that. But go and compete an awful lot better against Greece. Go and give us the first half against the Dutch. Give us that an awful lot more often. The French game, nobody's giving out about that because France are probably the best team in the world. Nobody's worrying about that. But the Greek game is what really, really grates on people. And that group of boys have an awful lot more in them to show. It might not be with that style of play. It might be a different style of play, but they can win games of football. So I don't think Stephen Kenny can look and go, well, the League of Ireland is not doing so well, or it's a little bit behind schedule, so that's why we're suffering. That's not quite the case. It does need help. Everybody needs help. The first team needs help. The kids need help. But that group of lads can do an awful lot better.
Yeah, and let's turn our attention to the 21s, but still thinking about the seniors. And this is off the back of Andrew Moran being promoted from the 21s and wasn't involved in the 3-2 defeat against Norway. Won't be involved against Italy. Will probably make his debut at some stage against New Zealand. And that was a talking point in the build up to the 21s game against Norway, and then it carried on over the last couple of days as well. And Alan Cawley was the first one to talk about it. So let's listen to him and his thoughts on the decision to promote Moran rather than have him of use to the 21s.
I don't think this is the right thing at all, Peter, I have to be honest. And that's nothing against Andrew Moran, who's a fantastic young player and who will go on to have a great career with Ireland. But right now, at this moment in time, based on where the senior team are, and effectively a dead rubber tomorrow night against the Netherlands, and a meaningless friendly against New Zealand on Tuesday night in a half-empty stadium, I don't think that's going to benefit Andy Moran whatsoever. His debuts and his prolonged senior career will come afterwards. It's not like this is a case of a lad who soldiered all his career and he's getting a call up at 29 and his dream has come true. This young fella is going to have a really, really brilliant career. And right now, in this moment in time, I think he would be best served playing with the 21s in what's two huge crucial games, one today and one on Tuesday night. And I would also throw Bamidele into the mix in that as well, Peter, because I think we have to give ourselves the best possible opportunity to try and qualify for a major tournament. The under-21s have never qualified for a major tournament. And we keep hearing about Stephen obviously changing the face of Irish football and the culture and bringing young lads through. And we see that tweet about 24 debuts. It's not about giving lads debuts. Yes, it's about changing the culture and trying in terms to promote the game and develop the game. But right now at this moment in time, I think those lads will be far better served. And there's a history of this. If you go back to the playoff game against Israel as well, Israel dropped down 3 lads from their senior team to play in that playoff, and we ended up losing on penalties. Yeah. We should have dropped 2 or 3 down off that as well. Bamidele is probably 5th, 6th choice centre-half at the moment when you think of the 3 or 4 that are ahead of him. His last competitive game, Peter, was on the 29th of August for Norwich. He hasn't kicked the ball in months. He'd be better off playing with the lads.
All right, so that's Alan Cawley, and that was actually before the Norway game, so it carried on then in the build-up to the Dutch game, where Didi Hamann agreed with the general point Alan Cawley made, but then he also said it was inexcusable that Moran was brought into the seniors, given the competitive nature of the what the under-21s had ahead of them. But he also said the decision should have been taken out of Stephen Kenny's hands. And Shay Given and Richie Sadler agreed with the first part of it in terms of that maybe Moran should have stayed with the 21s, but I think they were not in agreement in terms of something like that being taken out of the manager's hands. And David, I mean, looking at it, that would have been, I presume, a bit of a dangerous precedent if there's somebody, let's say, in this scenario, a director of football like Mark Canham making a decision about who gets into what squad.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous to be suggesting that the manager can't pick the squad. You know, you can criticise maybe selections, and even say the point Alan Cawley was making even as well about Andrew Bamidele as well. Like, it's a valid one too, I suppose, you know. Like, it's interesting if you look at it as well. Ireland have done it. Like, you know, Aaron Connolly went back down to play for the 21s as well, when maybe it's kind of a different circumstance in the sense that obviously kind of broke into the senior team. His club career dipped again. It's another kind of indication of, you know, like, these fellas can have a bright start, and the nature of and even in Aaron Connolly's point of view and what he's kind of said, you know, distractions come into it, the point that Keith made earlier, that's where it's coming into it earlier as well, where there's so much promise, but there's so many pitfalls in various factors that are still ahead of them that they do have to maintain. Like, the Moran situation, it's just one of those where it's going to grow legs, because of obviously you've got a manager who's under pressure regardless anyway, and not that it's easy or it's cheap. It's a valid point you're making. Well, he's the stand-in captain for the 21s. They've had that big game in Norway. Like, I watched, they were very unlucky in the end, just switched off in a couple of moments and gave away two goals. But at the end of the day, like, do you know what I mean? I know what you're saying about 21s, but at the end of the day, regardless, if he is still a senior manager, he still has that right to be thinking, well, these are the players I want. This is who I want to bring in. I would imagine it was with a view to making sure he's around the squad because he's going to be involved in the New Zealand game. Yeah, the 21s, like, you can be sure that like in the past there was like conversations with Jim Crawford about it. I imagine he wouldn't have been best players, that he's probably going to lose one of his most influential players in terms of how they like to play. But at the end of the day, he's still the senior team manager. He still has that right to pick who he wants, and like, the decision can still be criticised. The thing about taking it out of his hands, like, that's just bizarre kind of thinking and logic, in the sense of like of doing that. It's coming because obviously Stephen Kenny's own position is coming to an end, and it's like, well, the decision should be taken out of his hands, but he's still the senior manager, so like, the decision, the FAI have still given him that right to make it, and he was well within his rights to do it. And so yeah, like, it's not that it's a non-issue. I just don't think it's as big an issue as people are discussing. Do you know what I mean? I really don't. And yeah, that's it really.
And Keith, from a player's point of view, and like your own experience of having played in the 21s and then made it to the senior team, but now we can't presuppose what Moran would be thinking and what he would want to do. But I guess the goal for every player is to make it at senior level and as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's a really tough one, this, Raf, because I can see it from both sides. You can see that the 21s are right in the mix of qualifying now in that group. They need all the best players. But for me, the underage teams are there to serve the first team. And if the first team want an underage player, the 21s and 19s, if they want them, then it's their right to go and get them. And I've been in that position where I've been playing for Don Givens in the under-21s, and I've been flirting with maybe getting into the first team. And once you start hearing your name being linked with the senior team, you start looking around the 21s and thinking, I wish I was with the senior team. And look, I think Andrew Moran personally, I think he would want to play for the senior team. Now that we've gone the other side of the weekend and Andrew Moran didn't play in the qualifier against Holland, it makes the decision, very, very questionable, because the right thing for him at this moment in time is to play big games. That was a big game against Norway. It was an international game. That would have been a building block for him to say, well, I played in the under-21s. I've been in deep water with the 21s. I'm ready for the senior team now, and he can start putting building blocks there. He just took that building block away, and it looks like, I would imagine he'll get some game time tomorrow against New Zealand, and that might justify the decision. But taking him out of two very serious games for the 21s to give him a friendly cap international, I don't think really warrants it. But I can see Andrew Moran. When you're a player, sometimes you think, Alan Cawley's right, Andrew Moran, you would imagine, will go on to get a whole host of caps for the Republic at some point. But when you're a player and you're within it, you're thinking, there's no tomorrow. We need that cap now. I want to be there now. And you're only ever a bad injury away from not fulfilling your potential. So Andrew Moran, I'm sure, will be chomping at the bit saying, give me that cap. I want that cap. But the 21s need him. And I'm sure he is mating around the 21s that it's not quite as professional as the senior team. It's a little bit looser. You have a bit more crack. So I'm sure he would have wanted to be there with his mates and really try and push that over the line. But again, Raf, I can see that from both sides. I could go down either argument. I know as a player, you would want to be in the senior team. But Stephen has been an under-21s manager as well. So he's been in Jim Crawford's shoes, and he's thought, okay, well, I'm going to take him. And it does look like a selfish decision to me, but I'm sure Andrew Moran won't be complaining if he gets a cap tomorrow.
Yeah, and the result, of course, in Drammen, and it was sub-zero temperatures. Ireland lost 3-2 there. Idemo Maku and Sinclair Armstrong got the Irish goals, but ultimately a couple of Norwegian goals towards the end in a spell of 4 minutes saw the game turned around. Let's listen to Idemo Maku, and then we'll discuss an aspect of the game.
Idemo, you're our player of the match. That was a difficult night. Did so well. Just didn't finish well for you. How do you sum it up?
Yeah, you can't fault the effort of the lads, you know what I mean? Go a goal down and obviously come back to go 2-1 up. I think a few things went against us, and I'm sure all the lads felt like that as well. But look, that's the game we play. You have to take the highs with the lows, and we all look forward to Tuesday now and to put things right.
From a personal perspective, great battling performance from you in particular. You never stopped working, and you got your reward as well.
I think that's all you can do, to be honest. I think they started the game on top. They were passing the ball around, and I think that's when you have to kind of look at, assess the situation and just start digging in for the team. And I think that's what I've done. And obviously, fortunate to get my goal and the assist for Sinclair. Great finish from him as well. So
great chemistry there between you two.
Yeah. We've been playing football together for as long as I can remember. It's only now that we're kind of separated at club level, but we played together back in Ireland at Rovers. We played together on the school team, so we've played together quite a few times. So I know how he plays. I know how he wants to play. He knows how I want to play. He knows where I want the ball. I know where he wants the ball. So it's just kind of almost that brotherhood between us. So it's good playing with me, So yeah.
First setback. Can you get back into this? You're not out of it by a long shot. You're right in this, but a huge game now on Tuesday.
No chance. I think we're still in it because first 3 games, 3 wins, and obviously unfortunate not to win tonight. But look, 3 out of 4, we'll take any day of the week. You know what I mean? So we look forward to Italy now on Tuesday and just to put things right. And I'm sure all the lads will be buzzing for it now, and I'll focus on Tuesday.
Well done, Idemo.
Thank you.
All right, so that's Idemo Amaku there, who was Ireland's player of the match and scored the Irish opener, which was the equaliser to make it 1-1 in the first half. But he got subbed off then, Keith, and what seemed to be a little bit early, although I think the logic of it was there's a crucial qualifier against Italy tomorrow, which is going to be live on RT2, RT Player, 5 p.m. And, that's when the coverage starts and kick off at 5:30. What did you make of that decision? Johnny Kenny came on and it seemed to, and as he alluded to there, he's got a great connection with Sinclair Armstrong, and the game seemed to get away from Ireland around that point onwards, and then the Norwegians got a couple of goals, although that had, again, the penalty, of course, had nothing to do with whether Amaku was on the pitch or not.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, Raf, it's probably the wrong decision. You can see what Jim Crawford was thinking. I'll get him off. I want to keep him fresh for the Italian game, but given how close the game was and they could have easily won it, was on a knife edge, it just makes the mind wander and think, if Amaku had stayed on the pitch, could Ireland have gone and took the initiative and maybe win it? But look, they're fine details in the game, but it's great to see the 21s, competing in groups. And the Italian game now tomorrow is going to be a huge game. The Italians yet to even concede a goal in the group, so defensively very, very strong. But with Sinclair Armstrong as well, Armstrong's a big strong boy. He's physically able to match anybody. He's quite mobile as well. Sometimes you see these lads with all the muscles and you think, yeah, but he won't be able to run. He's quite mobile as well, and he can get into a physical battle. Not a bad little finisher. So we have hope in that game. There's every chance we can go and get something out of it. It's going to be an uphill battle. The lads are going to have to suffer, but that's what I listen to Amaku there. You hear him saying, sometimes we have to assess the situation. We don't just go running around. I think that's brilliant. That's problem solving. That's excellent. That's exactly what you want now. It's going to be, 10 times worse when he gets into the senior team and, people like De Jong or Rinders have the ball in the Dutch and he needs to make split-second decisions whether or not to go distances. But he's doing that now. He's doing that at a lesser level, but he's assessing the situation. Will I, won't I? He's thinking for himself. He's not just thinking, well, the manager said I need to do that, so I'm doing that. He's thinking, what's right for the team? Will I, won't I? And that's brilliant for me. That's what under-21s football is all about. He's learning. And you're thinking Andrew Moran in the mixer there as well. It's just, you're thinking, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you're just thinking, if we'd have kept Amaku on the pitch, Andrew Moran in the mixer, could we have won that game? And then we're bouncing into the Italian game. But as it was, look, we're not out of it. There's no point being downbeat. We're still right in the mixer. It's going to be tough against the Italians, but I wouldn't be backing against us, Raf.
Yeah, and turning our attention to the Women's Cup final and Athlone Town winning their first trophy. I think this is only their 3 or 4 years in involvement in the Women's Premier Division, so it's a great story. So they were up against Shelburne, a repeat of last year's cup final, which they lost, and Athlone and Shells played out a 2-2 draw at Tallaght Stadium yesterday, with Athlone winning 4-3 on penalties, and it was a game that was thrilling and tense in equal measure. Dana Sheriff for Athlone opening the score and led the line really well in that game, but then Gemma Quinn scored a brace once in normal time to equalise it, and then a goal early in extra time to give Shells the lead, but then Gillian Keenan equalised before the penalties came along. And of course Athlone started the game really well before Shells sort of came into it, and Chloe Singleton was the player of the match for Athlone Town, and she was speaking to Valerie Wheeler.
I actually can't put into words how that feels. I'm a ball of emotions, We went 1-0 up, I thought that was it, managed the game. In fairness to Shelburne, they're some club, they have a way of coming back into the game. I actually cannot put into words how I feel right now. I'm lost for words, I'm so emotional, I genuinely cannot believe it.
Headed to extra time, then of course the penalties. What was it like just before the penalties?
Oh, it was a bag of nerves. We were 2-1 down. We thought that was it, but to the girls, this year we've come from being down in games last week against Shamrock Rovers, 4-1 down, to end up drawing 4-4. It's what this team is about. It's what the girls are about. We've so much grit and determination, and to come back like that and win on penalties, I'm so proud of the girls, and that's all I can really say about that.
Yeah, you worked so hard, and for the first time ever, you have the cup in your hands.
I cannot believe it, It's a credit to the club, to Tommy, who had us at the start of the year, to Ciaran and Ken, who came in, to all the background staff, to the girls, to all the fans who came up from Athlone today, everyone watching at home. It's a credit to everyone. We couldn't have done this without the support we have back home, and I'm just absolutely so proud of everyone.
Well done, congratulations again, Chloe.
Thanks a million.
All right, so that is Chloe Singleton, player of the match, who was speaking to Valerie Wheeler there. And again, as I said, it was a tense tussle. I suppose before we play the managers, Ciaran Kilduff of Athlone Town, then Noel King, also Shelburne, who's finishing up his spell in charge, which has yielded 3 trophies, including a double last season. I mean, David, it's a great story for Athlone overall.
Yeah, like I was at the final last year covering it, and it was interesting because at the time they were defiant afterwards. Obviously, Tommy Ewan, who was the manager and since departed, and he was adamant that obviously, they're going to kick on and they're going to be challenging again for the league and for the cup. And obviously, stuff that was going on, obviously, with Shamrock Rovers coming back into the league, and they weren't able to probably kick on as they were able to. And it was very interesting, even just listening to Ciaran Kilduff talk about what it meant to him, and the fact that obviously he won stuff as a player with Dundalk and won stuff in the league, and like the fact that he felt like he won 26 medals just because of having that, not the ownership, but just having that kind of responsibility and with the squad. And then you see like the drama of it and just the finish of it. It's sort of very rare that you kind of get that level of kind of excitement and drama. Normally in extra time, normally it's a case of, you know, almost teams subconsciously don't want to make that mistake, don't want to be kind of pressing, or don't want to be kind of leaving themselves exposed for maybe making that mistake and then obviously giving something away. But yeah, it was serious drama. You kind of felt for Shells a little bit because it was a cracking goal to go ahead, and then equally like the touch of the finish for the equaliser in extra time was superb. But it's one of them where you think for Athlone, will it be used for them as a bit of a springboard for something else, for something more for next year? And maybe with a manager like Ciaran Kilduff, even listening to some of the comments from the players, even in the build-up to the match, and like you mentioned, obviously Dana Sheriff was there, like she was even saying it, just like the impact that he's had as well. So that's going to be something to kind of to keep an eye on, because you kind of see it in the women's league with like how Peamount, and almost like it's almost as if they're the outliers a little bit because they're not that club who are associated with the League of Ireland. They're very much out there on their own a little bit, but Athlone kind of have that sense a little bit, you know what I mean? Like the kind of the outsiders, obviously in the Midlands, they're not one of the big, seen as one of the bigger clubs that will be around, but they've been thereabouts over the last couple of years, and now they might have that young manager who has the desire, not so much the desire, but that kind of connection now to feeling to actually stick around and maybe do something more with them for next year too.
Yeah, let's listen to Ciaran Kilduff and then also to Noel King.
Ciaran, first of all, heart-stopping stuff there in the end, but congratulations.
Yeah, no, incredible. I think just the drama probably of this whole campaign for us. That's our 3rd penalty shootout. So, listen, it is something we practice. You know what I mean? We know whatever it takes to win it, you got to do and be prepared. And I would have bit your hand off with 6 or 7 minutes to go in extra time, 2-1 down for a penalty shootout. So to get there and for the girls to show the character, I couldn't be prouder.
Dana delivered, and then Gillian got you to the penalties, to be fair to her.
Listen, she's a superstar, like, in fairness to her. I was trying to get her on earlier, and she couldn't happen to a nicer kid. That moment, as I said to her at the end, I was like, I've never experienced anything like it. You think maybe it's getting away from you, and I'm just delighted for her. She's a special person, and the girls love her, and what a moment.
You should have kept the suit on.
I know, I might have to put it back on now as well, but I suppose as well it's important to wish Noel best of luck in whatever he does. We had a good chat at the media day on Monday, and he's far from finished, but I think after the match is the right time to wish him best wishes. I'm delighted for our lot, obviously, but I wish him well.
I did mention your playing career at the start, that you've achieved so much, but you have a medal around your neck now with those girls. What's that feel like?
Yeah, that's a special one, to be honest. I think, as I said probably earlier to you, when you're representing a group, it's different than just worrying about yourself, and I feel like we got 25 or 26 medals today for my day's work, so I'm delighted for them. I really am proud of them.
First of all, commiserations. It's never an easy way to lose those penalties.
It's never an easy way to lose a final. The penalties are just one of those things. It happens. It was a great game, I thought. Both teams really went for it. I think it's a good advertisement for the league, for the girls, the progress they're making. And the only thing that went wrong on the day was to lose the bloody thing, even though we had it in their grasp after fighting back so well, so strong. And I'm sorry for the girls, I really am, because it would have been great. Both deserve to win it, to be fair.
Yeah, you can see they're terribly heartbroken there.
Yeah, well, that's the passionate people they are, and that's what they put in. They put in so much effort and training during the week. It's a full commitment. It's not as amateur, you know what I mean? It may be amateur in the name, but it's not. It's going towards a professional way of life, and they live their life nearly 7 days a week for football.
Unfortunately, you didn't get to go out on the high, but do you look back at your time fondly with them?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they're great people, they're great players, and I've enjoyed not every bit of it. You get a bit cranky too when you get old. So. But overall, I'm glad I had the opportunity to come and do what we done together, and it was. I'm delighted.
They'll be able to bounce back from this.
There's no doubt the dressing room was full of talent, absolutely, from the 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds to 33-year-olds and 35-year-olds. There's lots of talent. It's a big club in terms of women's football anyway, that's for sure. And I wish them all the very well.
All right, so that's Noel King there, who's signing off with Shells after a very successful spell, including 3 trophies, winning the cup last year, and that was part of a double, and then having won the league in very dramatic fashion the year before that. And you mentioned Don Givens there earlier, Keith, in terms of the 21s. Noel King, I think your crossover from the 21s into the senior Ireland team. Am I right in saying Noel King took over the 21s just after you'd finished up at that age grade?
Yeah, I just got into the senior team when he took over. So I never actually played under him or for him, but I've met him a few times. A couple of things, a couple of little events here and there. And he's a proper football man. You can just rock up to him, have a chat. You can pick his brains about anything. And in the women's football as well, he's been really, really good, brilliant career. And like Ciaran Kilduff said, he's by no means finished. I think he's going to take a bit of a break now, but he's by no means finishing. Just a refreshing interview. Obviously, low as a snake's belly, just lost the final on penalties, but still smiling, still having a bit of crack, still seems happy enough in himself. And yeah, he's an absolute legend of the game. And every little interaction I've had with him, I've come away thinking he's a real legend and a real football man.
Yeah, and before we just talk about Everton, just a little bit of news in terms of League of Ireland and Cork City still looking for a first-team manager. There was the rumour mill last week where the ex-Cliftonville boss and current Derry assistant Paddy McLaughlin was linked with the Cork City job, but he ultimately ruled himself out and then added that he was kind of frustrated with the rumours that had come out, which had suggested that a move was imminent when in fact it wasn't. But something that is confirmed, Drogheda United manager Kevin Doherty signing a 2-year full-time deal there, and that's great stability for the club. He did a brilliant job over not just this past season, but the season before that as well. And then Kerry FC as well, a little bit of a change there with Billy Dennehy stepping down as manager to focus on the role as sporting director. And they finished with 10 points last season, but they did beat Athlone, so they have that sort of monkey off their back in terms of having a win at League of Ireland level. And Conor McCarthy will take on the head coach duties, and the rest of the backroom team is staying in situ as well. And I think, in fact, at 25, he's supposed to be the youngest head coach or manager in League of Ireland history as well. So that's an interesting one. But
he'll be grey in 6 months.
Yeah,
that's before they've even played a match. That'd be just.
Yeah, no, look, management is tough. But look, in terms of Everton, before we go, they were deducted 10 points by an independent commission after being found to breach Premier League financial rules. The league referred Everton to the commission in March for an alleged breach of its profitability and sustainability rules in the period ending in the 2021-22 season, and the rules allow clubs to lose a maximum of 105 million over a 3-year period or face sanctions, and they are facing sanctions. They are going to appeal that, of course, but David, like, looking at the overall situation, there is a bit of context here with the Premier League. There's a sense that they're flexing their muscles, and they recommended a 12-point deduction. In the end, the independent adjudicators here decided on 10, but there's an independent regulator that's supposed to be coming in, and this is part of a UK government push, and there is a sense the Premier League are sort of getting ahead of it.
Well, yeah, because the Premier League are one of the they're trying to push against it because they don't want it. Do you know what I mean? That's the interesting aspect here. And obviously there's situations that are going on with obviously Manchester City, and that's a more complex case in the sense that there's obviously a lot more charges, 115 charges. That's kind of in the process now with the different lawyers that are obviously being involved. There's a situation emerging now over the last while with payments from Roman Abramovich with Chelsea, and Chelsea had already had to, their new owners had already had to kind of what was the fine they paid? They paid an amount for previous breaches that had happened as well. And then you see what's happened there with Everton, and it's you reading just some of the in the UK press reading about it. It's very striking that the Premier League. It's almost as the Premier League are trying to distance themselves from it a little bit. They were making it very clear that this was from the independent commission, that they're the ones who handed down this ban like straight away. It's typical kind of straight away. It's almost like you would expect it from fans. They're the ones who are going to feel this the most, in the sense that just like tribalism comes into it, and they'll say, well, what's going to happen with others? Everton mentioned it in the statement, didn't they, in their own statement, when they were saying about they were going to appeal it, because they have, I think, isn't it, a couple of weeks to appeal it as well. So, and there's some suggestion that the points deduction will come down there. Like, they've been basically working under a salary cap with the Premier League for the last couple of years, and each time they've made transfers, the Premier League have been warning them. Everton are trying to say, well, they had a plan to get stadium rights through their own, well, the previous owner, who's now looks as if he's gone, Usmanov's company, and the war in Ukraine, and they're trying to make it down to accountancy issues, that it's not as if they were there saying it was flagrant, and the Premier League on the independent commissioner saying, well, no, it's clear breaches, and there's a lot of whataboutery here, but the fact is, like, they broke the rules, do you know what I mean? And straight away those people coming out, it's like there's going to be that PR battle that has to be won, and we'll say, well, clubs who came out and wanted to create the Super League and destroy the Premier League, they got a meagre financial penalty, whereas now a club like Everton, who by all accounts they say, well, they've been working hand in hand with the Premier League within that salary cap for the last couple of years. Once it became clear that they were obviously in breach of stuff, they'll say, well, they've tried their best and they still get punished harshly. But I don't know, like, it's, you say, oh, it's the fans, but it's hard to have too much sympathy, I'll be honest. Like, especially you consider some of the waste is on it. It is hard to have too much sympathy, but then the other aspect, as I kind of said there straight away, which is always the way in football, the tribalism kicks in. They'll say, well, what about X? What about Y? But the fact is, they're gonna have to appeal. Probably reading some of the articles that have come out over the last little while, and reading between the lines of other bits, maybe there's the sense that this initial penalty came out knowing there'll obviously be appeal, and then it'll be reduced. But I don't know, it's hard. I'll be honest, it's hard. It is hard to have too much sympathy for the club. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, and one of the other aspects, of course, clubs that were relegated last season could sue. I think they have a month to do so as well, which could change the picture. But if that doesn't occur, Keith, looking at Everton on the pitch, and I mean, they're only the 10-point deduction, I think it maybe tells you what the balance in the table at the moment. They're only 2 points away from safety, even with a 10-point deduction. The one thing on their side, and this is a manager you've worked under as well previously, Sean Dyche is probably the best man to have there for this kind of firefighting job, and to push them back up from underwater, essentially.
Yeah, when as soon as this news broke that Everton had been deducted 10 points, I thought, I'd love to be in that Everton dressing room now, because Sean Dyche will come in, and as soon as you start thinking, oh, we're back in the relegation zone, my God, it doesn't seem, we start clicking on the pitch, and all of a sudden we get a slap on the wrist in the boardroom, and it's not even our fault anymore. He will just walk in and he will take that excuse away. He'll say, lads, I'm not having it. I'm just not having it. You want to come in and start giving out about this and that, just go away, because he won't care if it's the best player, if it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin. If you want to have their attitude, get out here. We're not having it. We're not using that as an excuse. No, we'll be taken away. And even now, I said at the start of the season, if Sean Dyche keeps Everton in the Premier League this season, he deserves to be in the mixer for Manager of the Year. If he keeps him in the Premier League now after a 10-point deduction, after losing to Marty Gray and Alex Iwobi just before the season started, I mean, he should be given the freedom of Liverpool, this fella. It's unbelievable. The job he is doing there is unbelievable. Even now, after 10-point deduction, people are saying to me, I still think Everton will be all right. That's crazy stuff to say. Like, 10-point deduction. And look, I get that, Luton aren't great. They're not really getting points on the board. Burnley playing good football, but not getting points on the board. And Sheffield United having a bit of a struggle as well. So there is 3 worse teams than Everton. But to get 10-point deduction, to be able to, imagine what that dressing room must be feeling like now. And like what David's saying, the tribalism, it does. Like, I'm not an Everton fan, but I'm a Sean Dyche fan. And I look at it from his point of view. And this is one charge that Everton have been charged with. And from my knowledge, they were transparent about it. They were working with the FA the whole way through. They were holding their hands up, saying, well, with COVID, with the new stadium, with everything that's going on, things have got a little bit out of hand here. And they were totally transparent. And let's be honest, Raf, I think it's 19.5 million they overspent. But I think if they'd sold Richarlison to Spurs for 80 million rather than the 60 million, this wouldn't be happening. So it's not a lot. Like, that's peanuts in Premier League football. It really is peanuts. I think for 19.5 million, Everton have been docked 10 points. That's nearly for every 2 million they've overspent, they've been done a point. That's a ridiculous ratio. And I know it'll probably get dropped to 6, maybe 7 points or whatever, but it just sets a very, very dangerous precedent. Like I said, in this big world of Premier League football, it's hard to feel sorry for anybody in that world. But, you know, when a team has done wrong but held their hands up and got that, you're thinking that's very, very heavy-handed, and you've set a dangerous precedent for what you're going to do moving forward now.
Of course, before we go, the Ireland under-21s in action against Italy tomorrow. That's Tuesday, 5 p.m. The coverage begins, and then 7:30 the coverage of the Ireland-New Zealand friendly, also on RT2 and RT Player, will get underway. And if you're hanging on after the match, of course, as well, there's Kevin Moore and Codebreaker. If you didn't catch it when it was broadcast initially, well worth a watch. Obviously, a great character, great one of our great legends. And David and Keith, thanks very much for your time. And to play us out, it's going to be James McClean speaking in the press conference earlier on what it has meant to him to play for Ireland.
Oh, look, I've never had the fact that, look, it means everything. The Ireland jersey, along with their city jersey, you know, it's a jersey that means more to me than anything else ever will. And tomorrow night, for the last time, you know, I'll pull it on. And you know, when I say that out loud, it's obviously, you know, it's a bit sad that that's going to be the case. But look, tomorrow night when I pull it on, I'll do what I've done 102 times before, and I'll try and do it with as much pride and as much justice as possible, because there's, like I said, there's no more special feeling than pulling on the green jersey and representing your country.